I wanna I'm going to draft Jody to come with me to Philadelphia and introduce me now for every speech that I have. But thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll say a little more about Jody in a second, but first, let me just say, Margaret, and to everyone at the Bipartisan Policy Center, thank you for pulling this together. As I look out, what a remarkable room of of individuals and longtime friends and people for whom I have such great respect and admiration. So it is an honor to be amongst you. I also just want to echo um, what Jody said, and I feel fortunate. We were friends before he became chair and I became ranking member. And I remember talking to him on the House floor a couple years ago when it was clear we were both going to be separately vying for these positions to respectively lead our sides and saying, wouldn't it be great if we both got this? So, as you can probably tell, we have a genuine friendship. And on day one, we both, Jody obviously as chair and me as ranking member, attempted to set the tone and basically said to our colleagues, look, there are certain committees in which you see the food fight and the invective and the nonsense, the performative BS. That's not going to be our committee. We are going to do serious work. If we disagree, we will have those disagreements, but it'll be based on policy, not on personalities. And I have to say, and it's a credit to Jody as chair, a year and 4 months later, we have really stuck to that. And I have gotten compliments from members on both sides who have talked about the tenor in that room. And if any of you observe our committee hearings, I hope that you have noticed this as well. In terms of the 50th anniversary of the Budget Control and Impoundment Act, boy, I remember when 50 used to sound so old to me. As I'm getting within striking distance of that 50-year mark myself in a couple of years, thank God I work on Capitol Hill, where you're considered young if you're under 70. Uh, but I would observe that if you look at any reform, and obviously the Budget Control and Impoundment Act came out of reform. Most reforms generally follow a similar pattern or cycle. First, there's a problem that many perceive the need to fix. Second, there is the reform that is enacted. And third, while it initially works, as time goes on, you start to see things drift. I think that we are following that same pattern when it comes to the Budget Control Act. We have seen increasingly in recent years a failure to pass appropriations on time, to even get the proposals out by the stated statutory dates. We have also seen the hyperpolarization within both major parties contribute to that dysfunction as it relates to the Budget Control Act and the budget process. So I do think it is time to look at reasonable bipartisan reforms to our budget process. I am excited and can share with you that ideally, as early as next week, a piece of legislation that I have and that Jody is my lead co-sponsor, the CBO Data Sharing Act, will pass the House of Representatives. It was passed out of committee unanimously, and that will give the Congressional Budget Office more tools to collect the data they need from agencies so they can better serve Congress. One of the great initiatives that grew out of the Budget Control Act of 1974 was the creation of the Congressional Budget Office. And I want to say publicly what I've said before to Mr. Swagel privately, and just how much respect I have for the almost 300 employees of the Congressional Budget Office who, especially in this era, work in such an admirable and nonpartisan way. Finally, while there are many aspects of the budget process on which I could focus, there is one aspect, and it doesn't come out of the 1974 Act. but it clearly is part and parcel of what has been going on, certainly every, if not every year, every couple of years. And Margaret alluded to it in her opening remarks. As the dysfunction has increased here and the polarization has increased, and it's a negative reinforcing cycle, we have seen the emergence of the debt ceiling become weaponized. This is one of the greatest threats we face to our economy. This is a hostage that should never be taken, but increasingly is. In the summer of 2011, July, August, we came dangerously close to crossing that X date. And then again last year, we came ever so dangerously close. I have legislation simply called the Debt Ceiling Reform Act that would improve that process, that would attempt to take it out of the realm of the political food fight and inject some rationality into how exactly the debt ceiling is raised. So, recognizing, as one of the speakers in one of the videos said earlier, in Washington, D.C. today, especially in an era of split government, for something meaningful to pass, it will have to be bipartisan. But one of the process reforms that I am working on diligently, and we need to pass before the next debt ceiling fight in the spring and summer of 2025, not that far away. We need to finally, at long last, come up with a permanent solution to the debt ceiling process. Because if we don't, I mean, we are playing with dynamite. We have to be perfect every single time. It only takes that one time for the X date to be crossed. And then the Lord knows what the sort of havoc that would be wreaked after that. So I look forward to continuing to work with many of you in this room so we can enact smart, meaningful, bipartisan reforms to our budget process. And it is in in furtherance of that noble goal that I am honored to be with you and working with you. Thank you.